It's the lunchtime thing. Two men, folded arms, mostly very, very cross. Is that fair?
Yeah, we're just holding our bodies together, I think, after a long, hard day.
With spit and string.
It was a long, long day. I'm not well in myself.
No.
Thanks for asking. No, it's going to take a while to get over this. It's funny games where you've enjoyed most of the experience. I was sort of saying to Julio, who sat next to me, this could be a good day or a very bad day. And it ended up being the latter, but it was sort of stolen away from us. And I'm not dealing with it well, and I don't know how I'm going to cope. And Exeter on Wednesday is not getting me. It's not going to get me through it either.
There's talk of -15 temperatures for Exeter, but there's a cold snap going to come in. There's going to be a freezing cold winds coming off the Irish Sea, and there's talk, it's just talk at this stage, of -15 for Exeter. How are you feeling about that?
There's talk of extra time and penalties. That's what there's fucking talk of, to put it with -50. That is so scripted, isn't it? And we can start off on the bombshell linked to this. I think that Jerome Sinclair, the BBC tell us, is going to leave at the end of the season.
Where's he going to go?
They're suggesting, there's no quotes or anything, but they're sort of saying it as though they just know, and I trust them on this, that he fancies a bit of Spain. And after this week against Exeter, who can blame him?
Yeah,
it's going to be warmer.
Yes, it's going to be warmer at the very least. Be a bit of a funny one, but he can't break into the match day 18 no matter what happens, seemingly, with the exception of the goal that he scores against Exeter. Would you be giving him a run on Wednesday?
Not on the back of this news. I'd say it's kind of the definition of useless. Although, he's a lad who scored a goal. I just wonder.
Nice then.
Yeah, I just wonder where the AD Ward thing sits in this way. I mean, I think it's probably just a resigned, I'm going to have to move him, aren't I, Liverpool? And they go, yeah, you are AD. We just don't want to see your face ever again. And he goes, that's fair enough, lads. I just think that's the way it's playing out. I was surprised he started the other night. I don't know. I mean, the reason for not playing Sinclair is I think we might have a strikers. I think Benteke's got to start. He needs the minutes.
Well, Benteke's absolutely got to start. There's no getting away from the fact that Benteke's got to start. But then, at some point we're going to have to find a way to get Benteke on the pitch for the grown-up games, because we can't go into the grown-up games where cumulatively the lads have scored 6 Premier League goals for Liverpool this season, and there's just not enough goals in the side that we're putting out there. And it might mean it's uglier football, it might mean it's more disjointed, but there's no point being boss at midfielding if you can't win the game of football, because the object is to score the goal.
And Benteke has given us 2 or 3 or 4 goals this season where it actually was nothing to do with making chances, and that was sort of shows. You wrote something, the review of the match yesterday, where you very much warmed to this theme of us not having goals in us, and it sort of links to an article Melissa for goal.com as well about our conversion rate.
I think that generally the conversion rate's dreadful. She says that was second only to Aston Villa in terms of being awful at converting shots into goals. And I think a lot of that is, we had 11 shots from outside the area yesterday, many of which are just blocked, many of which are just never going anywhere. We pick our moments badly. There's a general anxiety around where the goal's going to come from, and that bleeds into, I think, everything. It bleeds into the way we defend, it bleeds into the way in which the decisions we're making when we're in the final third, it bleeds into when lads are taking shots on, that they're snatching at shots, because they must have this feeling that if I don't do something, it's not going to come. Yeah. And there's not that relaxation that you sort of need. You think of all the great sides you've watched, Liverpool sides, Manchester United sides, Chelsea sides. There's a relaxation in the penalty area. It's all going to be all right, lads. Whereas Liverpool have got the complete opposite of that, and it's a really difficult circle to break. And this is where, if I was the manager, I'd just be looking to put my goal scorers on the pitch as much as possible, simply because, not because I think that solves it overnight, but I think it at least gives everyone a clear path. Liverpool played 4-3-3 yesterday. The front 3, 2 of them are midfielders and the other one's Firmino.
Yeah.
Something's got to give.
Yeah, you need lads who can dig deep and have some sort of muscle memory about scoring, and it's not just about confidence, because not scoring just breeds not scoring. You just see the nervousness that's everywhere. And hence we've been linked all weekend, really, and again this morning the Mirror are pushing it big that we've had an 8 million bid for Shane Long turned down. Jesus, Shane Long, eh? Where do you sit on that?
I wondered if it's almost like the Colker thing. The manager says on the Colker thing that basically we want a lad who can head it. Because we don't think we've got enough lads who head it, because we press, they go long, they head it. There was tons of ball being played into Fellaini yesterday from De Gea and Blind, where they're just thinking, this is just our out ball, so you need someone who's going to deal with that. And I thought Lucas played well, but you need someone who's going to deal with that pretty regularly. So that was the Colker thing. Long, I think he might be thinking, well, Long can stretch the pitch, you run the channels, which will help both Benteke and Firmino. They could both play with Long. So it could be that straightforward. Ings is out and they can both play with Long. I'm sort of all right with it, even though I don't think I don't think he's a very, very good player.
He's a pair of hands, really.
Yeah, he's a physical pair of hands who's got some experience. I'm all right with it. But I think this is back to the fact that it should be a constant thing. Liverpool should be constantly trying to add into the final third of the pitch. Because
keep twisting.
You just constantly keep twisting, and it might be that a lot of them won't work, and we've got to resign ourselves to the fact that a lot of transfers won't work. But when I was doing the United thing yesterday, I was sort of pulling there's summer that they signed Rooney, they also signed Alan Smith and Louis Saha.
Yeah.
The summer before, a couple of summers before they signed Cristiano Ronaldo. There's Forlan's come in not so long before then. The point is that you look at what Ferguson used to do. He just used to just add another one.
He did it from the word go, actually. He bought any old crap at the beginning.
Yeah.
And got a bad rep for it, but then eventually broke through and got good ones.
Yeah, exactly. You just keep lashing. You just keep going on very good at creative attacking players, but especially on goals. Just keep putting your money down on goals, because the rest of it you can cheat. And you look at Liverpool yesterday. If you just add one more, and you're going to get them wrong, but I actually don't even think the issue is the previous transfer window. I think the issue is 13, some are 13 and some are 14. When Liverpool spend the bulk of the budget, some are 14, on lads who aren't centre forwards. They bring in Balotelli at a snip at 12 million and Lambert for 7. That's 19 million in a summer where we shell out about 80 million.
And Markovic and Lallana for 15, best part of 50.
Without
goals in them, really.
Without there being enough. And then you look at the window before, because we've got Sturridge and Suarez, we just go, we're sound, and we get Aspas in and we have a little tweak around the edges. Yeah. Whereas you've just got to keep going, you've got to go, right, there you are, there's another one. And off the base, Benteke might not work long term for Liverpool, but just keep going. And
it's a test for Klopp, though, because he's made a point a few times here that he's worried about. I can tell you his argument against bringing in Shane Long is, goes, okay, sound, but what happens in 4-6 weeks? Sturridge finally gets fit, Origi's fit, Benteke's fit, Ings is coming back. I've got a lad I've got to put on the dole queue. He gets quite humanitarian about these things. I think he's probably wrong here. It's a bit more ruthless.
But on that, for instance, Origi could play wide. You could play three. The point of the minute is we're playing 4-3-3, and the front three are predominantly made up of lads in midfield.
Yeah.
If you play 4-3-3, your front three have got to be 3 lads who've got goals in them.
I couldn't agree more.
You can't mess around with this. Whereas we're now looking at 2 years of playing varieties on 4-3-3 whenever we play it with lads who are midfielders. Coutinho is a midfielder. Yeah. Lallana is a midfielder. James Milner is a midfielder. These lads, they all midfield. Yeah. The nearest thing we've got to a number 10 is Firmino, and he might not even be that. These, you've got to have attackers, and if it means that you end up with too many and you've got to shunt one off or something like that, that's great, because if you can buy Shane Long for 8-9 million, you can probably sell him for 6 or 7. We got 10 million for Barini,
and let it be survival of the fittest. As you said, we've shipped out 3 in the summer in Lambert, Barini, and Balotelli in one way or another. Just Shane Long's 29 in a few days' time. 77 goals in 316 games. Quite a few pens. He's played for shit sides. You want to be optimistic. Maybe it'd improve in a side that creates a chance. Would he have scored yesterday? Probably would have, if you got 1 or 2 of those. Wenger moaned about his physicality, and he seems to get knocked over in the box quite a lot. Danny Murphy, makes a counter argument today. I think it was on Talk Sport, something crap like that. And he said, what's the point of buying Long for goals if you've got to play him Benteke and you won't play him? He's a much better player than Long. Better put him in the side and work to his strengths.
But would Long help Benteke's strengths? You think, because at the minute we can't play
little and large style. Little and slow and fast.
It looks like at the minute he doesn't want to do Firmino and Benteke as a front 2, and Benteke and Firmino don't like they want to do a front 2. But would Benteke and Long work as a front 2? Quite conceivably. So at the minute our front 2 options are completely negligible because we can't get 2 lads fit. We can't get someone fit to play with Benteke. There's also an argument to say you could put Shane Long wide in a 4-3-3 in the same way you could with Danny Ings, and then you could put Benteke through the middle and Firmino off the other flank. My point here is, and it's not just because you're sitting next to me, we can't get anything out of Jordan Ibe. At the moment, for whatever reason, the lad might still come good. So it's quite difficult to say, well, this is how do you play to Benteke's strengths? What are your big moves that help you play to Benteke's strengths? It might actually be get a lad in who we can form a bit of a partnership with, who can stretch defences, who will do that near post run that Benteke wants, so we can drop to sort of the edge of the area for the pullback or to attack the ball in the air. Because he was doing it yesterday. He genuinely wants to be 16 yards from goal.
He wants someone to run off the back of him as well. Yeah. And I think the little I know Shane Long, he seems to like to play in a pair. I think he's probably got those instincts. Well, we'll see on that one. Other news today is a story about Barcelona, funnily enough, and the fact that they nearly spurned the chance to get Luis Suarez because they were so keen on Aguero and so worried about Suarez's punishment in that World Cup. Oh, is that sliding doors moment? I don't know, not quite. I've still not seen it.
Don't worry about it. Let's just move on.
Okay, not interesting enough. What was another interesting thing I picked up in today is, unlike the last thing, which wasn't interesting, was the Paul Tompkins piece. He's written about Klopp's sides are actually traditionally very, very tall, and at Dortmund they were tall. I think in his squad or his 11 for the Champions League final against Bayern in 12 or 13, whenever it was, only one lad less than 5'11". And that's something he hasn't yet been able to build.
Yeah, I've been having a bit of a discussion with Paul on Twitter this morning, because I think footballers' heights are quite mysterious in general. Because, for instance, I've stood very close to Jordan Henderson quite recently, and I'm convinced he's as tall as I am. But on the Liverpool website it says he's 5'11", and I'm 6'1".
It's the trainers they wear these days.
Well, maybe it is, but I've got quite, I tend to wear a sturdy shoe, Rob, they're about me.
Yeah, you're right.
So, I think, I personally, but I think that the issue there is, and this is why I think Joe Allen can't get in the team, actually. I think that Joe Allen can't get in because he's aware that he's played Lucas there to deal with Fellaini, so Lucas is good in the air. I think Henderson's walking at least 6. Emre Can's walking at 6, he's played centre-half for us. The issue is the full-backs. The issue is that Moreno's 5'8", 5'9", Klein's 5'9", 5'10", and I think the issue is the fullbacks. I think that this is your predominant problem that he's got, is that he's got these two fullbacks. I think if his fullbacks were bigger, you might actually have seen Joe Allen get a game yesterday. But I think
since ours aren't giants,
and there's not the certainly none of them dominant.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where Kolka comes in. But again, though, I am surprised Benteke doesn't play either of these games that we've just had, and one of the reasons why you might have used him against United would have been to just stand at the near post and attack it to clear for corners. Houllier used Heskey in that way really, really well, and also Houllier, if you look back at his full-backs, Babel on one flank and Carragher on the other. These lads, they were 6-footers, and they both had careers. Babel before he arrives at Liverpool, Carragher afterwards at centre-back. But, I think you've got to have the option of that. You don't necessarily have to do it every single game. So I think you've got to have the option of big lads at full-back. And the talk with Kolka was he might be able to do a bit at right-back, but we don't know.
It's interesting, the Benteke one. I actually think you get the impression it's not about not wanting to start Benteke. He almost wants to play two separate football matches. The bit where we stretch them and the bit where he comes on and we press the team deep. But it didn't happen really. So
but this is where, in the same way that, for instance, one of the places where I think that Rodgers began to go wrong was he was spending too much of his time solving deficiencies in the squad. When it would be better just to commit to something. And I do worry that one of the things that at the minute are the way where we are just sort of means that managers are having to almost do too much work, having to think too much a little bit rather than just coach, send them out. And obviously you're going to have to always make changes, but not feel as though you've got to constantly be solving problems, because that way madness lies.
So do you think he's right to pick the shape of team he wants rather than shoehorning Benteke in? Is that the bottom line?
No, I think instead. Well, I don't know what the shape of the team that he wants is. I still don't think you know necessarily exactly what it is that he does or doesn't want. He looks comfortable playing a 4-4-2. He looks comfortable playing 4-3-3. He looks like he was worried about Fellaini, so Lucas comes in, but that sacrifices X. It was almost like playing 10 versus 10. But Fellaini was still more of a factor in the game. I thought Lucas played really well, but Lucas isn't doing enough in the game to influence it in our direction, if you sort of see what I mean.
Yeah.
So the whole thing, I think that what happens is that we burn managers' heads out. We've done it before. I'm not saying that's happening to Klopp yet, but I think you've got to have...
Saw the signs, didn't you?
But I think you've got to sort of have you've just got to have you've just got to be able to commit to what you're doing. I feel like we've been talking for ages. Matt's looking at his watch.
We have. I think that's us done, isn't it?
That's us done. 2 shows today to come out. See you in a bit.